For 23 years, I was the invisible girl in my own home, until a stranger's trembling hand and one phone call shattered my entire reality. My name is Ellie, and I'm 23 years old. For as long as I can remember, I was the worker, the cleaner, the one who existed to make everyone else's life easier. I was up before the sun every morning, scrubbing, cooking, and washing while my brother Derek slept peacefully in his huge bed upstairs. My parents had a saying they repeated to me from the time I was little. It was simple and devastating. Some people are born to be served, others are born to serve. You, Ellie, are the second kind. I swallowed that bitter pill for over 2 decades. I never once questioned it, not until the day of Derek's wedding, when his future father-in-law stared at my face during a family portrait and began to shake. He took me aside and asked a question that would tear down every wall I'd ever known. Do you know who your real mother is? Before I go further, if this story speaks to you, please consider subscribing to Winds of Thought. And if you're listening, drop a comment telling us where you're from and what time it is there. Now, let's go back to the morning of Derek's wedding, the day I thought would be the absolute worst of my life. We lived in a massive, beautiful home in a wealthy suburb. The kind of neighborhood where the lawns are perfect and every garage holds a luxury car. Our neighbors were doctors, lawyers, and executives. From the outside, the Harrison household looked like a dream. From the inside, it was my prison. My room wasn't a room at all. It was a damp, unfinished basement with a concrete floor, no windows, and a thin, musty mattress. The furnace roared only a few feet from my head. In the winter, it was my only source of heat. In the summer, it was suffocating. Every single morning at 5 a.m., my cheap alarm clock would scream at me. By 5:15, I was upstairs in the kitchen, making breakfast for a family that wouldn't even acknowledge me. I'd scrub the expensive granite countertops and cook on the professional-grade stove. I knew every single vein in that kitchen island because I polished it until it gleamed every day. Mr. Harrison would come down around 7, his newspaper tucked under his arm, his expensive watch glinting on his wrist. He'd sit in his favorite chair and never once look at me. "Is the food ready?" he'd ask, his eyes glued to the headlines. "Yes, Mr. Harrison. The coffee is too weak today. Fix it tomorrow." That was the sum total of our conversations for 23 years, just orders and commands. I'd put his plate on the fine china and then retreat to the kitchen. I was never allowed to sit at that table. My place was by the sink, eating whatever was left after they were finished. I was furniture, functional and forgettable. But the real pain wasn't just the chores, it was the way they spoke of me. Derek's room was on the 2nd floor, with a huge window overlooking the garden. He had a massive television, the latest gaming console, and a walk-in closet bigger than my entire basement. He went to a private school that cost more per year than most people's salaries. "I was homeschooled, Mr. Harrison told the neighbors. The truth was, I wasn't taught anything. I learned to read from old magazines Mrs. Harrison threw away. I learned math by counting change at the grocery store. When Derek turned 18, he was given the keys to a brand new European car. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't even have a birth certificate. Your documents were lost in a fire, Mrs. Harrison told me once when I was young. It's too complicated to get new ones. You're better off staying here with us." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was supposed to be my mother. Derek had a credit card with no spending limit. He bought shoes that cost more than I'd ever seen. I owned a handful of old, faded dresses, all hand-me-downs. At dinner, the family sat together and talked about their lives. I just stood in the doorway, waiting to clear the plates. Once, when I was a teenager, I asked Mrs. Harrison why I couldn't sit with them. She laughed. "The table only seats 3, honey. It sat 6. I had counted. That night, a dark truth settled in my heart. I wasn't part of this family. I never had been. Mr. Harrison called them the house rules. He wrote them on a card when I was little and taped it to the inside of my basement door. Rule 1. You do not sit at the family table. Rule 2. You do not call us Mom or Dad. You will address us as Mr. and Mrs. Harrison. Rule 3. You do not leave the house without permission. Rule 4. You do not speak to strangers." The punishment for breaking these rules was hidden in the pantry, a thin, flexible cane, the kind used for furniture. He only had to use it on me twice. The first time, I was 6 and had called Mrs. Harrison Mommy in front of a guest. The welts on my hands lasted for 2 weeks. The second time, I was a teenager. I'd saved up grocery change for months and tried to run away to the bus station. I was desperate to find someone, anyone who could help me. The police brought me home within a few hours. "She has no identification, sir," they told Mr. Harrison. "Is she yours?" Mr. Harrison put on a concerned, loving smile. "She's our daughter, a troubled girl, mental health issues. Thank you so much for bringing her home." They left. He locked the door. I spent 3 days in the basement without food. When he finally let me out, he leaned close and whispered, "Without papers, you don't exist. And if you don't exist, no one will ever believe you. No one will ever help you. Do you understand? Without papers, you don't exist." I understood perfectly. For 7 more years, I never tried to leave again. Derek wasn't cruel in the same way. He didn't hit me or lock me in the basement. He simply didn't see me. I was like a piece of furniture to him. "Ellie, my room is messy. Ellie, I need the car washed." When his friends came over, he'd introduce me with a dismissive wave. "That's our housekeeper. Not sister. Not family." Housekeeper, no one ever questioned it because I looked nothing like them. The Harrisons all had brown hair and brown eyes. I had green, almost emerald eyes and dark chestnut hair. I asked about it once, years ago. Mrs. Harrison slapped me and told me to stop asking stupid questions. At 26, Derek was handsome and successful. He hadn't earned his job. His fiancé's father had arranged it. Chloe Whitfield was blonde, poised, and the daughter of a real estate mogul worth a fortune. Derek had proposed a few months ago with a huge diamond ring. The Harrisons were overjoyed. This marriage wasn't just about love, it was about status. I heard Mr. Harrison talking to his wife the night of the engagement. "This is it. This is how we get into their circle. Mr. Whitfield could change everything for us." They had no idea that Mr. Whitfield would change everything, just not the way they expected. I was 15 when I finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had haunted me. Mrs. Harrison was in the living room flipping through a catalog. I'd just finished mopping the floors. "Mrs. Harrison?" She didn't look up. "What? Why am I different from Derek?" Her eyes went cold. "Different? How? Why does he get to go to school? Why do I have to stay here?" She cut me off, her voice sharp. "Because some children are born to be loved, and some are born to serve others. You're the second kind, Ellie. That's your purpose. That's your fate." She went back to her catalog. The conversation was over. I went back to the basement that night and stared at my reflection in the cracked mirror above the sink. My eyes were nothing like theirs. My face was nothing like theirs. But I didn't question it. She was right. I was born to serve. Fighting it only brought more pain. For 8 more years, I believed that. I woke at 5. I scrubbed and cooked and cleaned. And I told myself this was what I deserved. Then came Derek's wedding, and the man who looked at my face and saw a ghost. I didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. The wedding announcement came 6 months before the ceremony. Derek and Chloe would marry at a lavish hotel with 200 guests, a live orchestra, a 5-tier cake. The total cost was over $100,000, generously covered by Mr. Whitfield. Mr. Harrison was ecstatic. "This is the biggest day of our lives," he kept saying. "The Whitfields are old money. We need to make a good impression." Mrs. Harrison was consumed with planning every detail. She bought herself a new, expensive designer dress. I assumed I'd be a bridesmaid. I'd spent 6 months helping prepare, addressing invitations and organizing everything. I'd even practiced walking in heels, imagining myself in a beautiful dress, standing beside the altar. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, Mrs. Harrison sat me down. "We need to discuss your role," she said. My heart lifted. "Am I walking with the bridesmaids?" She laughed, but it wasn't kind. "No, Ellie, you'll be helping with service, passing out champagne, making sure the guests have what they need." The words were like ice water. "You want me to work the wedding? It's not work, it's helping." Her smile was thin. "You know how you are. Clumsy, awkward. If you stood up there, they'd wonder what was wrong with you. Is that what you want? To embarrass Derek on his special day?" I shook my head slowly, the familiar numbness settling in. Later that night, the wedding invitations arrived. I searched through every card. My name wasn't on the family list. It wasn't anywhere at all. The rehearsal dinner was held at an exclusive country club. Everyone was there. I wore a black dress and a white apron. Mrs. Harrison had chosen it herself. "Remember, smile, don't speak unless spoken to. Stay invisible." I carried a tray of champagne flutes through the crowd. No one looked at me. I was part of the scenery. Until Chloe noticed me. "You're Derek's sister, right, Ellie?" I nearly dropped my tray. "Yes, ma'am. Why aren't you sitting with the family?" Before I could answer, Mrs. Harrison materialized at my elbow. "Ellie prefers to help out. She's shy. Always has been." She patted my arm with fake affection. Chloe's brow creased, but she nodded politely and drifted away. I resumed my rounds. That's when I noticed him. Mr. Whitfield, Chloe's father, standing by the railing, watching me. He wasn't just glancing, he was staring. His face had gone pale, his jaw tight. He approached me slowly. "Excuse me, what's your name?" "Ellie, sir, Ellie." He said it like he was tasting the word. Do you happen to know who your birth mother is?" The question made no sense. "I'm sorry?" He stared at me for a long moment, then excused himself abruptly and walked toward the parking lot, phone already pressed to his ear. Mrs. Harrison watched him go, her smile frozen, her knuckles white around her champagne glass. The night before the wedding, I sat alone in my basement. Upstairs, I could hear laughter, toasts, and the clinking of bottles. Down here, there was only the hum of the furnace. I held the black uniform I'd wear tomorrow, pressing out the wrinkles with my hands. Beside me lay the white apron. On my lap was a photograph, the only one I had of myself with the family. I was very young in the picture, standing at the edge of the frame while the Harrisons and a toddler Derek posed together by the Christmas tree. They were touching. I was alone. In 23 years of living in this house, I didn't have a single photo where I stood beside them. Not one. Why? The question had whispered to me my whole life, but I'd always pushed it down. Asking led to pain. Curiosity led to punishment. But tonight, in the darkness, the question wouldn't stay buried. Why didn't I look like them? Why did they treat me like a stranger? Why had they kept me hidden? I thought about Mr. Whitfield's face at the rehearsal dinner, the way he'd gone pale, the tremor in his voice. He'd looked at me like he knew me. But that was ridiculous. No one had ever looked for me. No one had ever wanted me. Tomorrow, I would serve champagne at my brother's wedding while my family pretended I didn't exist. Then life would go on exactly as it always had. At least, that's what I believed. I had no idea what was coming. I woke at 4 a.m. on the morning of Derek's wedding. The house was silent. I crept upstairs and started breakfast, a full spread, just as Mr. Harrison expected. By 6, I had the dining room set. Then I moved to the guest room where Chloe's wedding dress hung in its garment bag. It was a stunning, handmade gown, worth thousands. Mrs. Harrison had insisted on storing it at our house, claiming our closets had better humidity control. The real reason was so she could show it off to her friends. I steamed the fabric carefully, my hands trembling. If I damaged this dress, I didn't want to imagine what would happen. Footsteps behind me. Mrs. Harrison appeared, wrapped in a silk robe. "Don't touch the beading," she said. "That's imported and worth more than you." "Yes, Mrs. Harrison," she watched me work, arms crossed. "When we arrive at the hotel, you'll enter through the service entrance. Don't let anyone see you going in." "Yes, Mrs. Harrison, and don't embarrass us." Her voice dropped, sharp and cold. "This is the most important day of Derek's life. If you do anything to ruin it, I will make you regret it." Mr. Harrison's voice boomed from downstairs. "Ellie, where's my coffee?" Mrs. Harrison smirked and left. I stood there holding the steamer, staring at the dress I wasn't allowed to touch, and something shifted inside me. Small, but irreversible. This would be the last time. I didn't know how or when, but I was done. The hotel's grand ballroom looked like a fairy tale. Chandeliers dripped from the ceiling. White roses cascaded from every surface. 200 gilded chairs faced a platform where Derek would soon stand. I entered through the loading dock. The catering manager handed me a silver tray. "Champagne service. Keep moving. Keep smiling. Don't engage." I nodded and took my position. Guests streamed in. Everyone was beautifully dressed. I wove between them, offering flutes of champagne. My eyes stayed fixed on the floor. Mr. Harrison passed by without a glance. Mrs. Harrison paused just long enough to whisper, "Your posture is terrible. Stand up straight." Then Derek appeared with his groomsmen, laughing, adjusting his cufflinks. He saw me and waved me over. "Ellie, hey, make sure there's extra shrimp at my table. You know how Dad gets." "Of course." He turned back to his friends. One of them squinted at me. "Who's that?" "Housekeeper," Derek said. "She's worked for us forever." The words sliced through me. Housekeeper, not sister, not family. But I didn't react. I'd learned long ago that reactions led to punishment. I returned to circulating. Then I felt it, someone watching me. I turned. Across the ballroom, Mr. Whitfield stood alone, his champagne untouched. He wasn't just watching, he was studying me. The ceremony began at 4. A string quartet played as Chloe walked down the aisle in her beautiful gown. Derek waited at the altar, beaming. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison sat in the front row. I stood at the back of the ballroom, tray in hand, watching from 50 feet away. The officiant spoke about love and commitment. Derek's voice cracked as he said his vows. Chloe's eyes glistened. They kissed. The room erupted in applause. And I stood there, invisible, holding champagne I wasn't allowed to drink. For a moment, I imagined a different life, one where I sat in the front row, one where I wore a beautiful dress, one where Derek introduced me as his sister. But that life didn't exist. Maybe it never had. The crowd rose. Derek and Chloe swept down the aisle, arm in arm. As they passed, Mrs. Harrison caught my eye. Her expression wasn't warm, it was a warning. Don't forget your place. I lowered my gaze. Somewhere in the crowd, I felt that watching presence again. Mr. Whitfield, standing near the back, hadn't clapped once. He hadn't taken his eyes off me. I didn't understand why, but a strange feeling crept through me, something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, and I didn't know what to do with it. If you've made it this far, I think you understand why I'm telling this story. You might know what it feels like to be invisible. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had to serve people who wouldn't even admit you exist? If you have, drop a comment. Let me know I'm not alone. If this story hits close to home, please like and subscribe to Winds of Thought, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about myself. I'll be right back. The reception began with champagne toasts and a jazz band. I worked the Whitfield family table, refilling glasses. Chloe's mother smiled politely. Her aunts chatted about summer homes. Mr. Whitfield sat at the head of the table, barely touching his food. Every time I approached, I felt his gaze. When I reached to clear his salad plate, his hand shot out and gently caught my wrist. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low. "I need to ask you something." "Of course, sir. Your name is Ellie?" "Yes, Ellie Harrison?" "Yes, sir." He released my wrist. His hand was trembling. "Do you know who your mother is? Your real mother?" The question again. "I live with Mr. and Mrs. Harrison," I said carefully. "They've raised me since I was a baby." Mr. Whitfield's face changed. Something broke behind his eyes. Grief or recognition. "Excuse me," he whispered. He stood abruptly and walked toward the terrace doors, pulling out his phone. Through the glass, I saw him speaking intensely to someone on the other end. Chloe noticed. "Is my dad okay?" I didn't know how to answer. At the family table, Mrs. Harrison was watching. Her champagne glass paused halfway to her lips. She leaned toward Mr. Harrison and whispered something. He found me with his eyes, and his expression hardened into something I recognized. Fear. I'd never seen Mr. Harrison afraid. Until now. The photographer clapped his hands. "Families, please gather for portraits." The Whitfields assembled first. Then the Harrisons. Mr. Harrison straightened his tie. Mrs. Harrison smoothed her dress. Derek wrapped an arm around Chloe. I stayed back, tray in hand. The photographer scanned the group, then pointed at me. "What about her? Is she family?" Silence. Mr. Harrison's smile tightened. Mrs. Harrison looked at the floor. Derek said nothing. Then Mr. Whitfield's voice cut through. "Yes, she's family. Ellie, please come stand beside me." I froze. "Sir? Come here." His voice was calm but firm. I set down my tray. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. "Mr. Harrison's face flushed red. He couldn't object, not to Mr. Whitfield, but I could see his jaw working, the fury barely contained. Mr. Whitfield placed his hand on my shoulder. "Right here," he said softly. "This is where you belong." The photographer adjusted his lens. "Everyone ready?" Smiles. The flash fired. Mr. Whitfield kept me close as he looked at the preview on the camera's screen. I watched his face as he zoomed in on the image, specifically on me. His eyes went wet. "Those eyes," he murmured. "That chin. My God." He pulled out his phone again and walked away. I heard fragments. "It's her. I'm certain. Get the file from 2003. Prepare a Dina kit tonight." My heart stopped. The moment the photographer moved on, Mr. Harrison's hand clamped around my arm. Outside now, he pulled me through a service corridor past the kitchen into a narrow hallway stacked with crates. The noise of the reception faded. "What did you tell him?" His face was inches from mine, his breath hot. "Nothing, I swear. Don't lie to me." His grip tightened. "Why was Whitfield asking about your mother?" "I don't know, he just asked." Mr. Harrison shoved me against the wall. The crates rattled. "Listen to me carefully." His voice dropped to a hiss. "If you say anything to anyone about our family, I will throw you out on the street. No money, no clothes. You'll be homeless. Do you understand?" Mrs. Harrison appeared at the end of the hallway. "What's happening?" "Whitfield keeps asking questions about her. Something's wrong." Her eyes narrowed. She approached slowly. "Ellie, after the reception, you're staying to clean. You don't speak to anyone. And whatever Mr. Whitfield wants to discuss, you tell him nothing. We are your family. We saved you. Without us, you'd be dead in a gutter." She smiled, that practiced public smile. "Now get back to work." They left me there, shaking, alone among the champagne crates. Mr. Harrison's words echoed in my head. "Without papers, you don't exist." But Mr. Whitfield thought I did exist. He thought I was someone. The question was, who? I returned to the reception floor in a daze. The band was playing, and couples were dancing. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison sat at the family table performing their roles. I picked up my tray, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. He was right. Without documents, I was no one. If I tried to leave, I'd be found. This was my life. I drifted toward the exit. Maybe I could just disappear. What difference did it make? No one would notice I was gone. "Ellie," I turned. Mr. Whitfield stood behind me. "May I speak with you privately, just for a moment?" I glanced toward the family table. Mrs. Harrison was watching us. "I don't think I should, please." His voice cracked. "It's important. I've been looking for someone for a very long time." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. It was old, faded, soft at the edges. A young woman holding an infant, dark chestnut hair, green eyes exactly like mine. "Do you recognize anyone in this picture?" He asked quietly, my throat closed. I don't know who that is, but something deep inside me stirred. Something that felt like remembering. Mr. Whitfield led me to the terrace overlooking the hotel gardens. The night air was cool. Inside, the reception continued. Out here, there was only the distant hum of traffic and the hammering of my own heart. He held the photograph toward me again. In the soft light, I could see it more clearly. The woman was young, in her mid-20s, with a radiant smile. The baby in her arms was wrapped in a pink blanket. "This is my sister, Margaret," Richard said. "And the baby is her daughter, Ellie Ashford Whitfield." I stared at him. "I don't understand." 23 years ago, Margaret's baby was taken from a hospital nursery in the middle of the night. Kidnapped, his voice wavered. My sister spent 5 years looking for her. She hired investigators, worked with the FBI. She never stopped believing her daughter was alive. He swallowed hard. She died when the baby would have been 5. Heart failure. But the doctors said it was grief. She simply gave up. I'm so sorry, my voice was a whisper. But I don't see what this has to do with me. Mr. Whitfield turned to face me. Ellie. The baby's name was Ellie. She had green eyes, rare in our family, but Margaret had them too, he gestured toward my face. That nose, that chin, the shape of your mouth, it's identical. I took a step back. Mr. Whitfield, I think you're confused. I've been searching for 23 years. Tears streamed down his cheeks, and when I saw you at the rehearsal dinner, I knew. He reached into his other pocket and withdrew a small plastic container. Please let me take a DNA sample. If I'm wrong, I'll never bother you again. But if I'm right, he steadied himself. If I'm right, then the people in that ballroom are not your family. They're the people who stole you. The words hung in the air like smoke. Stole you. For 23 years, I'd been told I was worthless, born to serve, lucky to have a roof over my head, and now this man was telling me I might have been stolen, that I might have a family who wanted me. It was too much. I can't, I said, backing away. I can't do this. Ellie, please, his voice was gentle but urgent. I have a lab on standby. Results in 72 hours. Even if the test matches, if it matches, you're Margaret's daughter, you're my niece, he swallowed, and you're the legal heir to the trust she established before she died. I stopped. What trust? Margaret never gave up hope. She set up a trust fund in your name to be released if you were ever recovered. It's been growing for 23 years. How much? Mr. Whitfield met my eyes. $12 million. The terrace tilted beneath me. But this isn't about the money, he said quickly. It's about the truth. It's about justice. And it's about giving my sister peace. Inside, the band shifted to a slow ballad. I could see Mrs. Harrison through the glass doors, scanning the room, looking for her property. I thought about the basement, the rules, the cane in the pantry, 23 years of being told I was nothing. And then I thought about Margaret Whitfield, dying of grief, never knowing what happened to her baby. I met Mr. Whitfield's eyes. What do I need to do? He opened the dinner kit. Just open your mouth. The next 72 hours were the longest of my life. I went back to my routine, waking at 5, scrubbing, cooking, cleaning, but everything felt different. Every time Mr. Harrison barked an order, I looked at his face and wondered, did you buy me? Every time Mrs. Harrison criticized my work, I heard Mr. Whitfield's voice. The people who stole you. She noticed the change. What's wrong with you? She demanded on the second morning. I'd let the coffee sit too long. Nothing, Mrs. Harrison. I'm just tired. You're always tired. She poured the coffee down the sink. Make another pot. And pay attention. I made another pot. I washed the dishes. I folded the laundry. But in my pocket, I carried a slip of paper with Mr. Whitfield's personal cell phone number. Derek and Chloe had left for their honeymoon. The house felt quieter but no less oppressive. On the third night, I lay awake, staring at the concrete ceiling. Then my phone buzzed. An old phone, the only device I owned, glowed with a text from an unknown number. Results are in. Can you meet tomorrow? 10:00 a.m. Cafe on Main Street. RW, my heart stopped, then started again, racing. I typed back. I'll be there. The next morning, I told Mrs. Harrison I needed to buy cleaning supplies. She barely looked up from her magazine. Be back by noon. I have guests. Yes, Mrs. Harrison. I walked out the door and kept walking toward the truth. Toward the answer to every question I'd been too afraid to ask. The cafe was a small place with exposed brick and the smell of fresh espresso. Mr. Whitfield was already there, seated at a corner table with a manila envelope in front of him. His eyes were red. Ellie, he stood. Thank you for coming. What do the results say? He slid the envelope across the opened it with trembling fingers. The document was covered in technical language. But one section was highlighted. Conclusion: the tested individual is the biological daughter of Margaret Eleanor Whitfield, deceased. I read it 3 times. 4 times. The words didn't change. You're my niece, Mr. Whitfield said softly. You're Margaret's daughter. You're Ellie Ashford Whitfield. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. This is real? It's real. I've already contacted the FBI. The cold case from 2003 is being reopened. He reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison will be investigated. If they acquired you through illegal means, they'll be prosecuted. Prosecuted? The word tasted foreign. Federal charges, human trafficking, document fraud, child endangerment. His voice hardened. They could face 15 to 20 years. I sat back, the DNA report clutched against my chest. 23 years. 23 years of basement and beatings and being told I was born to serve. And none of it was true. I wasn't worthless. I wasn't unwanted. I had a family who loved me. A mother who died of grief when she lost me. And now, finally, the truth was coming to light. I want to pause here because this is where everything changed. For 23 years, I believed I was nothing. And in 72 hours, a DNA test destroyed that lie. But now, I had a choice. I could walk away quietly. Or I could let the truth come out. What would you do? Tell me in the comments. If you're still with me, hit subscribe to Winds of Thought because the final confrontation is coming. 1 week later, the trap was set. Mr. Whitfield had invited the Harrisons to his estate, a grand mansion with stone gates and a circular driveway. The official reason was to discuss business opportunities for Derek. Mr. Harrison was ecstatic when the invitation arrived. This is it. He crowed at dinner. Richard Whitfield wants to bring me into his inner circle. Mrs. Harrison spent days selecting her outfit. Derek and Chloe were flying back early from their honeymoon specifically for the meeting. No one suspected anything. I was instructed to come along, of course, to help serve refreshments, Mrs. Harrison said, as if it were obvious. I didn't argue. When we pulled up to the estate, Mr. Harrison let out a low whistle. This must be worth 30 million. Easy, more, Mrs. Harrison murmured, her eyes gleaming. We were ushered into the main sitting room. A cavernous space with high ceilings, oil paintings, and antique furniture. Mr. Whitfield greeted us warmly, shaking Mr. Harrison's hand and kissing Mrs. Harrison's cheek. Please, make yourselves comfortable. I hung back near the doorway, watching. Mr. Harrison didn't notice the other people in the house. The man in the gray suit waiting in the adjacent room, the woman with the manila folder on her lap. But I did. Mr. Whitfield caught my eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. The FBI agents were in position. A housekeeper brought in a tea service. Mrs. Harrison accepted her cup with exaggerated graciousness. "This is a beautiful home, Richard," she said. "Just stunning." Mr. Whitfield settled into his armchair. "I wanted to discuss something with you before Derek arrives. Something about Ellie." Mr. Harrison's cup rattled against its saucer. "Ellie?" "Yes, Mrs. Whitfield gestured toward me. "She's been part of your family for quite some time, hasn't she?" "Since she was a baby, Mrs. Harrison said quickly. "We adopted her when she was just a few months old, gave her everything." "Adopted?" Mr. Whitfield nodded slowly. "That's interesting." "Because I had my attorneys check the county records. There's no adoption paperwork on file for anyone named Ellie Harrison." Silence. "The records must be incomplete," Mr. Harrison stammered. "Things get lost." "I also checked with the state. No birth certificate, no social security number issued at birth, no hospital records anywhere." Mrs. Harrison's practiced smile was cracking. "What exactly are you implying, Richard?" "I'm implying that Ellie has no legal identity whatsoever." He leaned forward, which raises a very interesting question. Where did she come from? Mr. Harrison stood abruptly. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing. It's not an accusation, Gerald. Not yet." Mr. Whitfield removed 2 documents from the portfolio. The first was the Dina report. The second was older, a photocopied FBI report with a case number and the word confidential. "This," Mr. Whitfield said, pointing to the Dina report, "confirms that Ellie is a 99.97% genetic match to my late sister. She is her biological daughter." Mr. Harrison's face went from red to white. "And this is the cold case file from March 2003. My niece, Ellie Ashford Whitfield, was abducted from the hospital when she was 6 months old. She was never found. Until now." Mrs. Harrison's teacup slipped and shattered on the rug. "This is insane." Mr. Harrison sputtered. "We didn't then explain the documents." Mr. Whitfield's voice hardened. "Explain why she has no birth certificate, no adoption records, no proof she was ever legally your child. There was a fire." Mrs. Harrison's voice pitched high. "Records were lost. There was no fire. I checked." The door to the adjacent room opened. A man in a gray suit stepped through, followed by a woman holding a badge. "Mr. and Mrs. Harrison," the man said. "I'm Special Agent Morrison with the FBI. We have some questions about the acquisition of your daughter." Mr. Harrison stumbled backward. Mrs. Harrison began to cry. And I stood there, watching the walls finally close in on the people who had called themselves my parents. What happened next moved quickly. The FBI agents produced a warrant and began reading the Miranda rights. Mr. Harrison tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Agent Morrison caught his arm and pinned him against the wall. The man who had terrorized me for 23 years whimpered as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Mrs. Harrison collapsed on the sofa, mascara streaming down her cheeks. "Ellie, please tell them this is a mistake. We're your family. We raised you." I looked at her. The woman who had slapped me, who had locked me in the basement, who had told me I was born to serve. "You raised me as a servant," I said, my voice calm and steady. "You never treated me like family. Not once. We gave you everything. You gave me a mattress on a concrete floor." I took a step closer. "You took my identity. You took my childhood. You took my mother from me." Mrs. Harrison's face crumpled. "We didn't know. We thought Mr. Harrison's voice cut through, suddenly vicious. You knew exactly what we were doing. Don't pretend otherwise. At that moment, the front door opened. Derek and Chloe walked in, fresh from their honeymoon, tanned and smiling. They stopped when they saw the FBI agents and their parents in handcuffs. Chloe's smile vanished. What the hell is going on? The federal charges came down within the month. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison were indicted on 3 counts each. The investigation revealed they had purchased me from an underground adoption network in 2003 for cash. The network had been shut down years ago, but the FBI had kept records. My name appeared on a ledger listed between a purchase price and a delivery date, like I was inventory. The trial lasted 4 months. I testified twice. Mr. Harrison maintained his innocence, claiming he'd been told I was an orphan. The jury didn't believe him. Mrs. Harrison turned on him during her testimony, claiming she'd been coerced. The jury didn't believe her either. Final sentencing. Mr. Harrison received 18 years in federal prison. Mrs. Harrison received 12. Their assets were frozen. The house with the basement where I'd slept for 23 years was seized. Derek's world collapsed. Too, Mr. Whitfield withdrew all financial support. The money spent on the wedding became Derek's debt. His job was terminated immediately. Chloe filed for divorce 3 weeks later. The man who'd grown up as a prince was suddenly alone, unemployed, and drowning in debt. And me? For the first time in my life, I was free. Derek called me 6 months after the sentencing. I almost didn't answer. The name on the screen still triggered something cold in my chest, but curiosity won. Hello? Ellie. His voice was thin, unfamiliar, not the confident golden boy I'd grown up serving. Someone hollowed out, I need to talk to you. About what? I'm in trouble. He laughed bitterly. The apartment's gone. The car's gone. I can't get a job anywhere. Everyone's seen the news. I waited. I was wondering if maybe you could help me out, just a loan, until I get back on my feet. There it was. 23 years of being treated like furniture, and now he needed something from me. Derek, I said slowly. In all the years we lived in the same house, did you ever help me? Silence. Did you ever stand up for me when Mr. Harrison hit me? Did you ever ask why I slept in the basement? Did you ever once treat me like a sister? I didn't know you knew. My voice stayed level. You just didn't care. I was convenient. I made your life easier. And now that I'm not there to serve you anymore, you have no idea how to survive. Ellie, please, I'm not going to help you, Derek, not because I hate you, but because you need to learn something you never learned growing up. I paused. Actions have consequences. And so does silence. I hung up. My hand was shaking, but my heart was steady. For the first time in my life, I had set a boundary. And I intended to keep it. The inheritance came through 3 months after the trial ended. Mr. Whitfield's lawyers had worked tirelessly to verify my identity and activate the trust. The process required court orders, FBI confirmation, and stacks of paperwork, but eventually the final document arrived. Beneficiary, Ellie Ashford Whitfield Trust. Value, $12,847,329.1. Status, active. I read the numbers 7 times before it felt real. Mr. Whitfield drove me to the bank himself on the day the funds were released. We sat in a private office while a banker explained investment options. $12 million, more money than the Harrisons would see in 10 lifetimes. But it wasn't the money that changed me. It was the name. Ellie Ashford Whitfield. My real name, the name my mother had given me before I was stolen. Mr. Whitfield helped me move into a guest suite at his estate. I had my own room with windows overlooking a rose garden, a king-sized bed, and a bathroom bigger than my old basement. The first night, I couldn't sleep. I just walked around, touching the walls, reminding myself this was real. He enrolled me in a college preparation program. My lack of formal education didn't matter. There were resources, tutors, people who specialized in helping survivors. A year later, I received my acceptance letter from a prestigious university with a full scholarship through a program for human trafficking survivors. I held the letter in my hands and cried for an hour. Then I found something else in the estate's archives. A handwritten note from my mother, Margaret, dated 2003. The year I was taken. I visited Mr. and Mrs. Harrison once. It was 8 months after their sentencing. I didn't owe them anything. My therapist said I shouldn't go, but I needed closure. The federal correctional facility was gray and cold. Mr. Harrison was escorted in first, wearing an orange jumpsuit. He'd lost weight. Mrs. Harrison came next. No more designer clothes, just a worn face that had aged 10 years. They sat across from me at a metal table. "You came, Mrs. Harrison whispered. "I prayed you would come." "I'm not here for reconciliation," I said. "I'm here because I have something to say." Mr. Harrison glared at me. Even now, broken and imprisoned, that familiar contempt flickered in his eyes. "Then say it," I met his gaze. "For 23 years, you made me believe I was worthless, that I was born to serve, that I should be grateful for scraps." I kept my voice steady. "But you were wrong. I wasn't born to serve. I was stolen. And you knew it." Mrs. Harrison sobbed. "We thought we were saving you. You thought you were getting free labor." I cut her off. "I'm not here for your excuses. I'm here to tell you I'm done. I'm not carrying your shame anymore. I'm not carrying your cruelty." I stood. "I will never forget what you did to me. But I won't let it define me either." I walked out without looking back. And I never saw them again. I'm writing this from my dorm room. It's small, much smaller than the suite at Mr. Whitfield's estate, but it's mine. My name is on the door, my books are on the shelves, my acceptance letter is framed above my desk. Some mornings, I still wake up at 5 out of habit. But now, instead of scrubbing floors, I make coffee and read my psychology textbooks. I'm studying to become a therapist, specifically to work with survivors of trafficking and family abuse. I want to help people like me find their way out of the darkness. On my nightstand, next to my alarm clock, I keep 2 things. The first is my new birth certificate, Ellie Ashford Whitfield. The second is the letter Mr. Whitfield found in my mother's archives. The one she wrote to me the week I was taken, before she knew I'd been stolen. "My darling Ellie, if you're reading this one day, I want you to know that you were the greatest gift I ever received. From the moment you were born, I knew you were meant for extraordinary things. No matter what happens, no matter where life takes you, remember, you are loved. You are wanted. You are enough." I read it every morning. 23 years I believed I was nothing. That I was born to serve, that I didn't deserve a seat at the table. Now I know the truth. I was born to be loved. And I'm spending the rest of my life making sure others know they were too. Thank you for staying with Ellie until the end. Many details in this story have been dramatized to deliver meaningful messages and life lessons. However, life is full of unexpected twists, and situations like this do happen more often than we'd like to believe. Every year, thousands of missing children cases remain unsolved. Every day, someone out there is treated as less than human by the people who should love them most. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe to Winds of Thought, and if you know someone who needs to hear that they deserve better, share this with them. More stories about strength, truth, and reclaiming your worth are waiting in the description below. Thank you for watching.